And it seems to be going there. So, kia ora and welcome everybody to our little chat here of a few people that we've known for a few years. And so you would have seen the agenda that has gone out, but if you haven't, it's something that we can get into as the convo goes forward. We're obviously chatting about health and fitness as it pertains to the times that we're going through. This is something that I did have a feeling I wanted to do at the beginning of the pandemic, but I guess just with the timing of everything, there was just a real saturation, I guess, of content coming out at that point. And what I didn't want was a voice of people who have a fair idea on what's going on to get lost amongst all the booty workouts that are out there. So a lot of this is more just a conversation about how the general population or coaches, athletes, anyone who's interested in fitness can start to see, the real effects of the times shifting, but then how we've kind of used these times to be able to progress with anything. How we can start to look at the scene a little bit different, because there's no doubt going to be developments, and also just how we as individuals or practitioners have actually been able to accommodate the shift in everything that's going on. So first things first, thank you for tuning in, and if you are watching a little bit later, thank you for watching as well. But I think what we need to do now is just acquaint ourselves with one another, as well as, acquainting ourselves to everyone that's going to be listening, basically because a lot of the answers that we do give will be quite contextual to the work that we're doing. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to do a quick roundtable of who you are, what you were doing position-wise, and kind of where you are now. So how it is that this time has changed anything that you were doing. And then we'll talk about future and the next question. So Ricky, if you want to kick us off, you can crank into it.
Beauty. Well, hi guys, I'm Ricky. Currently working in the Bay of Plenty, Mount Maunganui, at a place called Athlete Factory NZ. My position is Head of Strength and Conditioning, which I contract I actually signed about 2 weeks before lockdown started, so got in pretty sneakily there. And basically all that is look after the youth program. So after school program, I run a 4 to 5, I work with 10 to 13-year-olds, and then 5 to 6, I work with 13 to 16-year-olds, and then run International Rugby Academy. They live and breathe New Zealand rugby, so we train every day with them. And in the morning, work with a range of sports, from weekend warriors to having a guy who just missed out on the Olympics just before lockdown started with a couple of bad races in canoe slalom. I suppose how my kind of role has adapted or changed over this time is really just trying to come to grips with, okay, this is what we've got in front of us, and how do we actually come out of this, I suppose, shaping towards something. Like a lot of athletes with goals, especially for the season, are going to be Wakamati. Trying to orientate themselves around the field of what that actually looks like, and then making sure that a bigger thing for me and from the Athlete Factory in general was engaging with our athletes. So we decided that just sending them emails and checking in like that wasn't enough. We had to make sure there was Zoom conversations, that we were checking in on them, how they were doing. It wasn't just about the training they were doing, but actually how they were feeling, how was their family, was there ways that we can kind of make sure they're progressing outside of their training. So I know, like for me as well, cooking has been my outlet the last few weeks. I've been making breads, pasta, dumplings, and so I challenged all my athletes to try and learn how to make some good kai, learn how to read the back of their food products after their parents have gone to the supermarket, or if they've gone to the supermarket, just so they're actually learning something and taking something on board. So when we do come out of this, they may not be a better athlete, but we can work on that, but they're a little bit more well-rounded in that sense. Did I miss anything in terms of what else we want to cover? Or is that good?
Man, I think that's a really good coverage there. And I think the key thing that did come out with you and that one is that ability to, see these athletes as well-rounded people overall. I mean, they're at that age where we can start to mold their character, I guess, going forward. And then as we can see with the types of people you're working with as well, is that we're working with, towards the top tier, and that maybe that is something that them as athletes can start to take away. So cheers, Ricky. Dewey, you're up next, mate.
Shit, I was going to say a tough act to follow on that one, but was a Yeah, no, my name's Sean Burrows, better known as Dewey as we head through on it. But I got a couple roles that are pretty sweet to kind of what I do. My main, big rock that I do is I work at Otago Boys High and have for the last, 5 years, pretty much as their high performance trainer. So it's kind of pretty different within that context of it being a school because I look after the boys as they kind of come into more of a options subject through like a stream of PE. So it's pretty cool because when I look after them, I kind of have them in the gym. You get to work on their fitness, anything else that I kind of identify that they need to for their sports. So there's a wide range of sports that I look after for that, going from like football to hockey to rugby to there's some very promising cyclists, mountain bikers. I was going to say the list could go on. We've even got some boys that attend national camps for canoe polo and stuff like that. So that's a very interesting one to kind of take care of because I sit alongside the PE teachers. So as most of the stuff that they've been looked after as a group is kind of on the educational side, but the teams I look after, we kind of all have our Facebook pages that we work on. And then after that, we kind of more go on to other more private groups, and we kind of have used isolation logs. So anyone that's doing any exercise, they post it up for each other to get ideas heading through, as well as me sending out some structured programs to, as we've been pretty much knocked back a few pegs, let's just say for rugby, because we're now nearly at our pre-season again and how we have to build our way back up. But then on the flip side to that, I also was at work out of another business called Valley Strength Conditioning, which is pretty cool because I get to run my own private S&C clients alongside other group fitness training, and alongside quite similar to what I've done with Otago Boys High, I also look after the Harbour Hawks Premier Rugby team. And with that, I'm also a kind of assistant coach and their trainer. So it's all done along the same side. I was going to say one thing that I thought was very progressive and quite well done from Ricky's side is how they've done the whole well-being approach to it and how they've actually done like the cooking challenges and stuff, purely just because when you think about S&C of how it's all movement, everything else like that, being able to do cooking challenges, I think that's just one side that's kind of taking it to the next level way. But yeah, that's all from me.
Yeah, cheers, Dewey. That's plenty, and it's awesome to catch up. I actually, listening to a lot of you as we go forward, I don't think I've properly heard what you've been up to now. So it's been a few years since I've seen a few of you. So it's nice hearing all that work now. Cool. So we're going to move on to Luke.
Yeah, cool. So Luke Adams, I'm currently based up in Auckland. Moved up here 2 years ago for an internship with Blues. And then last year was with High Performance Sport New Zealand. Currently, I'm working with Sacred Heart First 15 rugby program. So that takes up maybe 10, 15 hours a week pre-lockout. And then I run my own personal business out of Snap Fitness, maybe 10 hours there. And then I've also got a couple of little contracts with New Zealand Squash and New Zealand Tennis. So looking after pretty much LTAD with squash and tennis, but tennis there's only sort of 3 or 4 athletes that I'm working with. With squash, it's about 60, but it's quite a generic type program. So I program for them remotely, and then when they have camps, I'll go in and look after them. I guess for me, my major ones are probably Sacred and my own personal business. Yes, they pay the most, but it's also in terms of my time commitments with them. So throughout my normal week, we have 3 gym sessions with Sacred Heart early morning, 3 field sessions, and obviously game day. So fairly dense. And I'm starting to work on a bit of a developmental pathway. So I'm trying to do that LTAD thing with Sacred Heart too. It's a bit of a struggle, but trying to get some stuff going there. So under 15s and getting them moving well. Pre first 15. That's my goal at the moment. But yeah, ever since we went into to lockdown, everything's gone remote. So as of yesterday, it was a little bit hectic, to be honest, going from, you know, that life to all remote. Getting texts, getting emails, getting Zooms, getting WhatsApp is all a little bit too much. So, and I will elaborate further down, but just trying to isolate, you know, work and life balance has been a little bit challenging. But yeah, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, so that's what I'm up to at the moment. Yeah.
100% agree, and I think a lot of people will probably agree with you on the whole front that now that everything's remote and it's basically just working off devices, it's really difficult to switch off, I'm guessing, because, you know, we used to physically take ourselves to wherever we were doing training or working with anyone, and then kind of when you got home, you know, some work on whatever device was, but now it's just all there. So yeah, definitely a big point there. Yeah. Right. So we're going to take it over to Fiji. Bula Roni.
Yeah, well, everyone. My name's Eroni. Currently living and working in Fiji. I was very blessed to get an opportunity to come over after doing a year with High Performance Sport New Zealand in Christchurch. Came over at the end of 2018 and started a role with the women's sevens team, and that was really cool. Got to travel to, I think it was eight countries last year with different sevens tournaments. You know, really cool exposure. Meeting a lot of other S&Cs from other countries. Then I moved to another team, the Fijian Latui, at the start of this year. And they were supposed to be in the new global rapid rugby competition. Unfortunately, that's been cancelled. But I'm still quite heavily involved with the high performance unit, which is all of our academy players here at Fiji Rugby. And so since the lockdown and everything, yeah, we've had to be very on the ball with communication with the players. They need to know what they're supposed to be doing. I've really had to simplify their program because, you know, with these Fijian guys, if they don't understand it, they're not going to do it. So it's been a good challenge for me. I've had to pretty much video myself or get some of the other trainers to video ourselves doing the sessions, demonstrating it, because they're very visual learners here. And it's also been cool because we've got one big Facebook page and the boys all post their training videos, and they use different apps on their phones, and we've got a few guys who are very creative with their transitions and music, and, you know, we've got a few potential directors coming out of Fiji Rugby one day. We'll see. In terms of their own personal development stuff, thankfully we've got a lady who actually is with the Pacific Players Union, and she posts a lot of stuff up in terms of different webinars that they could be watching to upskill. There's actually a surprising amount of webinars going where ex-rugby players are talking about, you know, life after rugby, things that they can still be doing, studying opportunities. So that's been cool to see that they've got something to, you know, use their time up with. But then for myself, you know, still got plenty of free time. So I've enjoyed going back to picking up a few musical instruments again, working on a couple side hustles to make a bit of pocket money. So yeah, I've actually enjoyed a bit of downtime. It's been nice. Yeah.
Awesome, man. And I think you've touched on what everyone else has kind of felt with the room, is that, yes, it's a very daunting time with a lot of the changes, but it's also a really nice time for reflection. And that's why getting us together so it's always a good practice, you know, just to see. I mean, we've all been sitting in a row in Phil Hancock's lectures, and he's always told us, you know, be the reflective practitioner. And this is how we get better over time. All right. We're going to take it over, bring it back to Dunedin with Mr. Marty McKenzie, Performance Academy. Unmute yourself, mate. Oh, yeah, there we go.
Sure, Blas. Thank you very much. Yeah, very well said, everyone. Again, sorry I'm late. Yeah, my bad. So what I've been up to recently or in the past, I've been doing a little bit of primary school and preschool coaching. So working with very, very little kids with different capabilities, abilities, working on catching, throwing, eye-hand coordination skills. So just using simple games, using the imagination to make it more fun. So it can be challenging. It's quite cool to do that because I've learned a lot how to make things exciting and also how to, I guess, cater for different interests essentially. So boys, girls, and different age levels as well. Also, what I've been doing is a little bit of personal training on the side, but recently I'm starting my own youth development program. So the idea of this is targeting kind of high school kids and giving them an equal opportunity and platform for them to get extra coaching and skills work done. So a lot of kids grow up, get a little bit discouraged to, I guess, essentially chase their dreams or ideally their sporting dreams because they don't make certain representative teams. They don't make extra trainings or first 15s, etc. So they miss out on valuable information in education to help them further their sporting career. And my passion and my idea behind this is to create equal opportunity for those kids to get the exposure, to get the extra teaching, education, and learning. That's called the Performance Academy. So that's what I have planned for the remainder of this year, and I've been using this time to do a lot of admin for it, reaching out to a lot of schools and getting the feelers out there. Kind of where I see this going in the future is, creating more interest within Dunedin, hopefully get a couple of schools on, and then taking it outside of Dunedin, up Central, and potentially do some camps and things like that. So I love to provide opportunity for that. Yeah.
Man, it's actually really cool, Marty. I didn't even know that was, the plan of all of this, but it is something that I guess isn't really discussed often because the people who do make it tend to, there's that exponential growth because of all of the resources that they are given. And then I guess the people who do fall under the radar, unless they're exceptional players or have an exceptional work ethic, do they actually get to make that? So yeah, that's really cool that you're doing that. So Fraser's jumped out, so we're just going to stay just us for now. Another reason why I wanted to bring us together is because I don't know if you know, but S&Cs aren't the first to brag, so they'll never really put themselves out there, and you can just see it that in terms of followers, you guys do have a following, but compared to the people who don't know what they're talking about, you're at about 0.1 of the following that they could have. So giving us a platform or trying to get out wherever we can is definitely valuable. And with the S&C culture, it tends to be the first people to take blame when things go wrong for some reason. And then you're also the last people to take any sort of credit when things go right. So, this is your chance now to really put yourself out there. And even though people do just see you as the S&C coach and they see you as these people who, when you're in the realm of, the training, they're like, oh, that's such a vibrant person. But really, like, that is a show that you guys put on. And everyone just assumes, there's big-headed, blah, blah, blah. But you never actually get to put yourself out there. So this is me telling you now, plug yourself wherever you can and just talk about any ideas that you've definitely had, because there's no besides the secrets that you're keeping for yourself, that's fine, but there's no limit to no one's really going to judge you because the work that you do is definitely valuable. So moving forward, something that did come out in all of that is you're working with wide ranges of people in terms of age group, and it seems as though you're not working so much with individuals, but you're working with teams. Now, the first thing that did go and the first thing that we as humans longed for was that social connection. And as we'd say, strategy is swallowed by culture any day of the week. And maintaining culture of the people that you're working with is probably one of the most difficult things, because we used to have a space where we could all congregate and share that energy. Ricky touched on it a little bit. You've got people doing these challenges and whatnot, and then each of you have Facebook groups or some sort of way going forward. Has there been anything in particular that you've been doing that's so Ricky, you can touch on what you've been doing as well as in the other groups that you feel is not just something that is going to be during this pandemic, but is probably going to be kept going forward? So Ricky, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, well, just going back to what I was saying earlier, like, I think the ability to actually connect with people on that deeper level rather than just, oh, you're here to train me, jump in, do a few sets. Like, a lot of people probably realise, I think when we go back, when like I've got one of our admin chicks at work, she's a gymnastics teacher, and like if you imagine you're a young kid, you're doing gymnastics, you're doing it every day of the week for 2-3 hours. When you go home, you're doing gymnastics, you're practicing. Now you've spent the last 5 weeks doing absolutely nothing. You're probably quite enjoying your free time. So if you don't have that connection with that athlete, with that person, are they going to want to come back, or do they have that mindset that actually that's quite a negative thing to me? So actually, it's probably a good time to create those connections if you don't have them, and then really draw on those, getting people back into their training. I think that's an awesome part of it. It's definitely something that I realised after a couple of weeks, and then a couple of webinars around engagement and how that might actually look over the next few weeks was a really good one. In terms of other things, that's probably my main nuggets. I'll pass it on there to someone else who wants to add something.
Yeah, so now we can just keep going through. So Dewey, if you wanted to jump back in again.
Sweet. Yeah, I guess it was probably a little bit of the opposite view of kind of, well, not opposite view, but the problem that I don't face it as the same as what Ricky would have, having the kind of clients coming back into the program. Because the good thing about being at the school as well, with them being students, are always going to be enrolled within the classes. But it has been one thing that I have thought about as well, is ways of keeping that connection between, well, coach and athlete per se, and kind of other ways of getting them involved. So like, I mean, if you don't have much resources like money or anything at your disposal, a couple of things that I have used as I've gone through is kind of getting them to do their own kind of, like let's just say, bodyweight testing at home. They have the personal responsibility to put it into Google Docs. So like a good thing with that, to mention it, is it gives them that personal responsibility to get something done. So you can start to see the accountability of who wants to be involved. But then alongside that, like things I thought I'd never get involved with, kind of creating like a YouTube channel so you can have an easier way to distribute larger videos like training, ways to take testing through so you can link that through. And another cool one that I've found that, well, I mean, as you did say, you can plug yourself. I did put on my page, is like I use Strava. So like a good way for that is I can actually, when I tell my boys to go for a run, I can get them to put the GPS on. Then I can actually start to see who's getting fitter, who's running longer distances. Then I can start to incorporate different ways for them to actually use the app. So doing like longer distance intervals and stuff. So like one very positive thing that like using Strava and everything like that is going through our rugby preseason. I had one boy who was battling shin splints like there was no tomorrow, because he just had an extremely high training load, being chucked right back into the deep end. You can't really pull them out because they want to impress the coaches and whatnot, but we've used this time to actually get him slowly back into running and running more effectively. So using him as well is what you say, a case study example. Like he's actually now running up to 6 to 7K without any problems. He's a big lad, 110 kg, but like it's quite good because like that has actually started to have a positive impact on him through this lockdown period. So there's ways like that I'm pretty stoked about, And like, yeah, that's probably about kind of what I got on that.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, this is a time where people can start to bring, things back and start to look at the progressions that can happen. But it's a fair amount of distance for a big boy. But anyway, Luke, if you want to jump in.
Yeah. So obviously at the start, when everything went remote, I needed to send out these programs pretty quick, just to maintain our training load. We, as a Sacred Heart group, we then decided to have, I think we've got about 6 or 7 sort of management, and we allocated 4 to 5 athletes to each person to manage them. So our little mini bubble groups that we tried to connect with sort of 2 or 3 times a week. Well-being, how you going? How is everything? How's school? Blah, blah, blah. But also making sure that they are training. And if they have any questions. So that's been quite effective. And within those mini bubble groups, they've created some in-house competitions, which has been effective. So just like some of the other coaches have been having training sessions with each other, little competitions, AMRAPs, stuff like that has been quite effective. So that's my sacred stuff. I guess I'm a bit of a blend between Ricky and Dewey. So I've got my teams, I've got individuals as well. With the individuals, I sent out programs too, but then also just giving them a text every 4 or 5 days, making sure that they are all good, that they are training, and if they're not enjoying the program, how can I change it? Same with Dewey, I guess, with the Sacred Heart boys. They're all coming back. We know that. But how can we minimize some of the damage that might be done over this period? And then on that, without getting too S&C, I sort of thought about residual stuff. So what's likely to lose the fastest? Probably speed and power. What's likely to lose the slowest? And probably aerobic and strength. So I tried to sort of prioritize that. So a lot of speed work and a little bit of body weight power work. But then same with Dewey as well. This is an opportunity to nail your rehab on anything that might be niggly. How often do we get 6 weeks to really go in on something? Even for myself, shoulder injury, it's a real good time to suss it out. And then also, we're going to have to start preseason again. So it is what it is, but trying to really focus on what we can do as individual rugby players to improve our rugby, because now we've got a small time frame. So prioritizing whatever. But yeah, it's been tricky. But yeah, just keeping that dialogue. We probably catch up as a group 2 or 3 times a week outside that bubble. So keeping constant communication has been pretty essential.
Yeah, and that's something that we probably don't think about often is, they see us as the port of call sometimes to come to, but then, being able to communicate with them as well gives us energy. So we always think of it as like they come to us and we should always be the strong ones, but, at the same time, a lot of what we do is to make these people better. So yeah, definitely. And you touched on some points about the preseason and the return. So that will probably be in the next load of things. So Ronnie, when you're ready, man.
Yo, so some things that I think that I've adopted that will stick around, during this time with a lack of equipment that these guys have, and myself, like you've had to be a bit more creative with your exercise selection and how things can be progressed and regressed. So at the moment, I'd say I've learned a lot of new exercises, how to change your levers to make something a bit harder. And so there's more exercises in my mental database now that I can use, just whip them out for warm-ups or whatever, be a bit more adaptable. I'm hoping that when we all go back, our hygiene habits will carry over, because previously it was terrible. I'd have my towel, like I'd go into the gym, train in the morning, have my towel hanging up to dry, and then at the end of the day when I go to put it in my bag, it's soaking wet because multiple players have used it. And just washing of hands, not sharing too much stuff. Hopefully we can continue that, because
All right. Just as his technical difficulties start to sort themselves out, we're just going to move over
there's
to
some
you.
good engagement. Sorry.
No,
Did I cut
good.
out?
Yeah, slightly.
Oh, my bad.
Just from the end of the practicing the hygiene, and then you were like, and then the one thing that's going to stay, and then it literally just cut out. So
True.
If you want to fill us in,
I'll just touch on it real quick. It's just that I've noticed there's been good engagement between our older players and the younger players all being on the same group, and there's been some good encouragement. Often they'll all do the same challenge, and some of these guys are 21, 22. Some of them are 16, 17, and when you see them, the banter going, and that when they come back into the gym, they'll be able to continue that relationship and hopefully get some good mentoring from the older guys. But yeah, that's all I had to say.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, that's the common theme coming through, is that we're all social beings, and once it all got taken away from us, we tried to find any way that we could to, be back on that same level again, and if not even stronger. So hopefully that's something that does translate further down the line. Marty, what's been going on, man?
Kia ora. Yeah, real good. It's a nice wee setup you got there, Troy. I need to give me one of those wee mics. um, yeah, so just encouraging challenges. Often when we stop, it's hard to start again, and often we lose track of routine from going to having a routine of having the gym. Easy kind of routine going. Something set up we've been doing daily to COVID being locked up. We haven't really had resources at home. We had a pretty short period of time to get ourselves sorted as well. So I guess a lot of people have done really well and been open with that. And kind of how I've approached this time is to encourage new movement. So habits, learning new skills, going for a run, going for a jog, something I don't normally do a lot of, but just getting a lot more of it, but also even putting extra time into small stuff. So kind of meditation, breathing, mobility, putting extra emphasis on that, extra emphasis on rehabilitation, kind of trying to expose weaknesses and using this time correctly for that. But yeah.
No, I definitely in agreement with a lot of the other things that we don't tend to think about. Like Ronnie was talking about picking up some more instruments and whatnot, and some people were talking about looking into stocks and all that sort of stuff. So like building the overall person, I mean yourself as well as the people that you're working with, because at the end of the day, we do want to be optimal human beings and not necessarily just on the field or just in the gym that we're working with. And I totally endorse that. Just one thing that came through with all of you. So yes, we do have these groups coming together, but we also have, so like there's this, do you find now that people aren't checking into the gym, and there's that whole concept of social loathing when people get together, like obviously if you're not tracking as I guess diligent, if you don't have the resources, do you think now that we're not actually seeing each other as much, so this is just for anyone to pop out, that the accountability has actually gone up? Because when we do return, we'll see who has been doing their homework or nothing, or do you think everyone's just the same as they always have been? Just jump in if you have any thoughts.
Probably fair, bro. It's probably fair statement.
Yeah.
I have made it pretty clear we are retesting when we return, just so they're aware. I myself, I'm training more. I have more time, but yeah, it's a tricky one. I had an interesting point. Two of my athletes got together at a field and did the session, obviously with distance. And one of the points was I pushed myself with him. And then we started to think, oh, okay, so maybe he wasn't pushing himself by himself. So maybe some of these guys are intrinsically motivated, some are extrinsically. It's hard to tell, but it's probably going to vary person to person. I like training by myself. Some of those guys probably feed off training with each other and probably only will train Hundy with each other. So it's probably going to vary. I think that's kind of what I've decided, is some of my clients are going to come back maybe a little bit underdone, some of my athletes as well. But from what I've gathered in terms of, we got them to do a Bronco and just based on trust, it seems to be looking okay, but there's always going to be a few outliers that do slip. Yeah.
Did anyone else have any thoughts on that?
On our side, the coaches have been keeping track of which players have been uploading their training videos. So the pressures on the players to actually do the session, make sure that we're seeing that they're doing it. Although they're not videoing the whole session, we trust it. Well, hopefully we can trust that they're doing the whole workout that we've prescribed, not just do the exercise for the sake of the video. But yeah, same with Luke. They know that there's going to be some testing when we all come back together, and hopefully that'll, give them some external motivation if they don't have any intrinsic external works.
I was gonna say, yeah, like the same as the other boys, like testing is always gonna come up, but like there have been situations when I have checked in with like a few of the high school boys and everything like that, even with the lockdown regulations that we have had, that you can go out and like kind of go for a run, still keep active, like even be able to go to a field. As Luke said, keep distance between you and your mates. I have had one or two boys that have had their parents put rules in places that they actually can't leave the house or the kind of section that they live in. So it's kind of hard for those boys that actually want to go out, be active, and intrinsically motivated because, like they want to go out and get the sessions done, but they're limited from what their parents say. Still being high school kids, they got to kind of abide by the rules of those that own the roof over the top of them and everything else like that. Yeah, there is always going to be that honesty part of it, but I guess it's weird that, as we were talking about previously, building that connection between coach and athlete, there's also got to be that trust that underlies it all. Like, yeah, they're never going to be exactly where they're at, but as I was just telling one of my boys, as I was talking to them the other day, is any positive mark that we make within the lockdown is something that's not going to be negative when we come back. So it's just those little reinforcements that you just try to, it sounds funny, but give them a pat on the back and still be a good voice in their ear instead of kind of always being like, you have to do more, you got to be more and all that kind of stuff. Because, within like high school rugby, highlighting that just as a one-off, like there's a lot of pressures around it and everything else like that.
Just on that real quick, I totally agree, man. I have, whether it's a good or bad thing, but I have been honest with them and said, look, you're probably not going to be in the nick that you were pre-lockdown. It is what it is. But another thing as well is if you can keep some kind of training load up, and this isn't to spook them, this is just being honest. If you do come back and you are detrained and you pull your hammy, you're going to be pretty pissed off. So if there's something that you can do to put you in a position to be less susceptible to an injury, then please do it. And if that's sprinting or Nordics or whatever it is, do that. But yeah, you just got to, I've just been honest and said, look, yeah, you're probably going to pull back a little bit on your overall conditioning, but not that big of a deal. We'll get you back. But yeah, don't stress on it too much.
Well, absolutely good points, and that's I guess another thing where the whole S&C guys, that everyone has, they're that hard ass trainer, but really the good S&C or the really good coaches are the people who have that human element, as well as, it's where the science meets the people. And, there's the academics who sit in the ivory tower and, no, this is what it says. The p-value says effect size is this, but, how many of them actually really do know that people hate doing that? So like, this is that whole interface between all of that going on. And you're really touching on that human element, which I don't think gets enough say out there. So it's really cool that that's coming out. Just one thing I wanted to move on, just aware of time, is we've all talked about, where we are now. We've all talked about how we've had to come through and adapt. Now, a lot of you are talking about, there is going to be a condition that they're going to come back. It may not be optimal, but there is going to be some sort of testing to see how they will be performing, and then how we can go forward from there. Like, testing isn't to scare people. Testing is to see where they are, obviously, so that we can implement a plan to be able to progress them properly, and making sure that, we are managing load effectively. So do you have any ideas about how you want to go forward with your athletes in general, or like maybe instead of the specifics, just your general overview for almost it's that return to play question? So obviously the last thing we want to do is just chuck them, as soon as the doors open, get straight into it. So what is your approach that you will be taking, or you would be advising people coming forward? So we'll go back to our old order. So Ricky, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah, so I kind of spent a bit of time today thinking about this, talking to another guy that we were trying to get on here, John Hayes, about what he was looking at for Mitre 10 and how that might look for their the 4 weeks that apparently New Zealand Sport are going to give to all codes before they go in. So my kind of feeling around it was kind of amalgamating what people have been doing to what they kind of used to be doing and kind of finding that middle ground. So been doing lots of body weight stuff. So why not keep doing a little bit of that and really trying to focus on movement patterns and stuff while we've still got that, but then just slowly trickle in and feed them a little bit of our gym stuff. And then with our conditioning stuff as well, a lot of the people that I've been working with have been keeping up the on-feet stuff. So the rugby club that I work with, we've been doing Strava the whole way through. We had guys running marathons or in half marathons and shit on the way through, which was a bit crazy, but that was all just part of a competition to see which mini team could get the most Ks. I think it's more about funneling that into a rugby specific load, I suppose, and then that's where that injury kind of stuff comes in. So it's just being smart around how much we do and when we do it. And it's still something I'm kind of figuring out at the moment, especially given when does level 2 start and then what does that actually mean. There's a lot of chatter around, okay, you can train in bubbles of 10 and no more than that. So how does that affect how we do? And so kind of A, B, C, D plans and kind of see where it falls. It's definitely going to be one where it's ideas are all there, but it's just kind of fine tuning what actually happens within the week or two that we actually know.
Exactly, just having that kind of general plan of attack, and then because we can't control the outcome of all of this in terms of what opens and whatnot. So yeah, just having that general plan, and then can start to nut out the details, I guess, as we get a bit more clarity. Dewey, did you have a idea going forward?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of a lot like Ricky on the situation. Is you kind of have to have your plan of what you want to go through. Well, it's always going to be ideal, and optimal is never really going to live up to its shape. So always having a B, C, D, E is going to be quite handy. But yeah, it is going to be one of those things, because I have seen, well, more specific to out in the province that I'm in, is like Otago Rugby Union has put out their level 3, 2, 1 guidelines of what you can and can't do as you come back. So I know it's always funny, well, specifically within this chat, is rugby is going to be the main sport that we talk about, but this can be towards any kind of team-based sport it can be related to. But as a role as like S&Cs, you always kind of got to go by what the coach wants to do. So I always have my plan, but I'm going to wait until we kind of get back onto the field, because I know, speaking to one of the coaches recently, he wants to get straight back into doing shape work, skills, drills, and everything like that. So if the coach goes back into a full implementation of his plan, and then I want to come in and match 100% on my end, these boys are going to be going through from the lockdown, kind of doing the occasional exercise to kind of being hit right back to where they were when they finished off the preseason, is going to be doing more harm than good. So for my end, is I'm probably going to say I'm more casual, because I'm going to see what the coach wants to do, and then just have things to add in to top up, bump up any running distances or stuff like that I need them to do. Because the worst thing as they get right back out of it is getting re-injured again. And I know on one of Ricky's previous posts he put up on his socials is talking about training load, everything else like that. And then I can't remember who chimed in with it. I think it was Kendall Malcolm, about the Achilles injuries coming in from the NFL lockdown in 2011. And it's always quite interesting to actually read back on those. And sometimes they don't say history repeats itself, but it is it's bloody close sometimes. So you just got to take it all for a grain of salt. So yeah, I guess that's the way I'm heading towards it.
So with the two of you, it's having that general plan, and I guess the overall is just managing that fatigue and load and progressing in a way that is actually going to be sustainable. Because I know, I guess we see it with the off season and people coming to preseason, people just hyped, like they masking they don't have fatigue anymore, basically, because they've had that time to sit down, and then they first thing they want to do when they get in is just like, can I just see where I'm at and then try and max out? And it's like, oh gosh, not this again. Anyway, cool. Luke, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, so pretty much the same. I think what's been really valuable is having that conversation with other management, and just I had that sort of 2 or 3 weeks ago, because I guess I'm observing what Super Rugby are doing, what NRL are doing. They've essentially enforced that 3-week preseason to avoid those injuries. And you're right, they're going to be hungry when they get back, so it's going to be trying to pull them back. It's going to be the biggest problem. But I have made them aware that even with those skills and drills and stuff, they're probably covering 2 to 4K at reasonable pace. So in terms of my prescription, I'm probably going to limit it, particularly initially, and I'll just phase it in. So like I said earlier, with the residuals and stuff, I probably will start exposing them to some kind of speed work. But I'll leave the anaerobic, the grey zone stuff for a wee while. I guess hoping that they'll attain that through their skill work. But yeah, it's a tricky one. I guess I have also accepted there's probably going to be, hopefully not too much, but there might be a hammy or a calf that pops up. And just, I guess, accepting that. But hopefully nothing too serious. But yeah, I guess that's about exposing them to some of those. Maybe it's the Nordics, like I spoke about before, or whatever. But I think the most important thing is just having that conversation with coaches and making sure that they're just not ripping straight back into full contact and full speed work and stuff like that. But they're all clued up. I guess it's just having that buy-in from the entire management and just understanding that right now we might be covering 2 to 3K over a week. Back pre, you might be covering 10 to 15. So we just need to find a way to ramp our way up. But also understand that other teams are going to be deconditioned as well. So it is what it is. Try and make the most out of a crappy situation. But yeah, it's one of those wait and see, because you're right, with the level 2, no contact, which does limit us, because contact is obviously an essential part of rugby. But yeah, it's a wait and see thing, but also trying to create a really grey plan.
Yeah, too good. Ronnie, if you have any thoughts?
Yeah, just gonna reiterate a little bit what the boys were saying. I definitely want to stay away from spikes and training load, because that's the formula for injury. I guess I'll sort of be following principles of, well, particularly when it comes to plyo and speed work, going from more low intensity, extensive stuff, and then slowly building the intensity. And when it comes to total running volumes, start low and then build that up as well as their body starts to adapt again. We're pretty fortunate that we can use SmarterBase, which is like an online data management platform where we can get the boys to input wellness data, and so we can actually see their own subjective feelings, like how's their body feeling, what's their fatigue levels like, sleep quality, are there areas of soreness, and that if we can monitor that closely, we can try and stay away from getting them in that red zone for too long, where they might get a higher risk of injury. Unfortunately, like as with most of you guys, probably don't have the use of GPS. Just the duration times RPE works pretty well, and then you can adjust your training volumes and loading through that, and slowly progress that over time as well. Yeah, those are my points.
Hey, just on that, the subjective stuff, just with how people, how they're feeling during the entire thing with the whole wellness. What's the uptake with that? Are people quite receptive?
In terms of the players inputting it?
Yeah, it's so like, is most of them inputting it because they feel like they have to, or do they actually see that there is a benefit getting those data for analysis?
I think the older guys who have been around for a while, they know that it's important for us to see how they're feeling, because often it's a conversation starter for us. If I see that you've been sleeping poorly or your stress levels are low for consecutive days, I might go ask you, what's going wrong? How can we fix it? The younger guys might not really understand why we do it, and that's where it's our job to educate them. Because if they know why they're doing what they're doing, they're more likely to buy in and do it consistently, and it's good for everyone.
I mean, because I think a lot of the time we forget that stress is stress, whether it's your training log or, you've just changed job or you're having troubles at home and barely sleeping. Yeah, exactly. So that's another example of the S&C fusion between science and people and having that human understanding. Yeah, thanks for that. Marty, last one, mate.
Sweet. Kind of things that if you come back from a long break or anything, things I guess you expect are definitely going to be injuries, and from an S&C perspective or a PT perspective, we can look at how can we limit that. So what we can do to implement if we're expecting, I guess, players to blow calves, hammies, stuff like that, think forward ahead on maybe things we can do to prevent that. Definitely get ahead of it before it even begins. So I guess this time frame is very specific to have, I guess, more conversations with players or athletes on how they're feeling a lot more closely. So exercise tolerance will be decreased a lot over this time. Looking at, volume, intensity, we're not going to be the same as what we were, like a lot of us said. So just making sure, we balance, I guess, volume with intensity, and you don't want to have too much of the same thing. But also we need to look at how much time do we have to get back into the sporting season. So starting at base is always ideal, making sure people are moving pain-free, don't have any niggles, and you go forward from there. Yeah.
Oh, very good points. Was there anything else anyone wanted to touch on before we moved on to the next point?
Just really quickly, I've gone on about it 3 times, but I think the training residuals is really, really important. Understanding that over that 6 weeks, they may have lost some strength, they may have lost some aerobic fitness, but it would be that speed and power that is probably most affected. So how can we get that back up? Because obviously you go back into full intensity sprinting, that's a hammy weighting. But then also little things like deceleration and change of direction, landings, ACL stuff, proprioception, all that sort of stuff is really, really important. And that's obviously can be quite low intensity stuff if you can balance it right. But yeah, I do think that finding a way to slowly reintroduce certain things that are of a higher priority, maybe those the burpees and the shuttles and that aren't as important as something like sprinting, in my opinion. And they might even get that anaerobic stuff from their teamwork, like I said. But yeah, just trying to prioritize what may lead to an injury. Just thinking around those sort of lines.
It's quite interesting. The thing that came through with all of us is that, we have to assess the situation and then slowly ramp up from there. So I hope everyone who's out there saying, oh, you can grow your booty if you just train it and do these 1,000, like just the stuff that is out there compared to what should really be done is just like, it just blows past everyone. And, it's, these small, simple concepts of like that shapes a lot of our practice is just like, don't just totally spike your volume out of nowhere, and also don't like just go in and max out on anything. But it's difficult, I guess, when we want things fast, or just human beings, I guess, in general want things very quickly. So if someone can sell me a $10 ebook about how to get swole and you wear your Gymshark, it's I'm probably going to go buy that and not listen to you guys. But just moving on. So actually, this is something that I want you all to think about. Mostly, sorry, I'm not to put you on the spot, Luke, but just with the whole commercial fitness thing. So in terms of the gyms, I don't know if you guys saw, there was I think it was Les Mills. There was a Les Mills up in Auckland. They got slammed on the news about trying to get membership fees from people who weren't paying. So people who weren't going in. Obviously, with the lockdown, no one could use the facilities anymore. They got slammed on the news for it. Now, my whole approach to commercial fitness is this. I think they run a model where their most valuable customers are those who aren't coming because they're obviously paying a fee. So the price point is around that 10 to 15 mark. And in terms of the maintenance, and you know, they sweat, they use soap, the facilities, they do cost a little bit. So if they don't come, they're a very valuable customer. Now, they're probably the first to withdraw their memberships, because obviously they weren't using the facility prior, but now they definitely can't use the facility. And now the people who will go back and probably be the most valuable customers will be those paying, you know, 3 times the price point, because they had someone like you, a trainer. So do you think, I mean, unless they get bailed out by the government, which is, you know, there is no, okay, we got to know there. So unless they do, though, this is really going to shake up the commercial fitness scene. And like, I use the gym, so I use the commercial fitness gym. So I'm not doing this to be like stuff commercial fitness. There is a possibility that, you know, the people who do go back are going to have to start paying, you know, for the value, for going in to actually know how to use equipment, because they're going to have trainers, because that's, you know, the people who are going to go back are the people who value their training. Do you feel like, so from a general perspective, but also people who are going to use the gyms, this is for anyone as well, but we'll start with Luke, that there's going to be a shift in that whole spectrum? Or do you see what
Yes.
I'm getting at?
I do. I gathered sort of 3 or 4 points there, but I also need to tread carefully.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Nah, it's cool. Yes, it will 100% affect commercial gyms. I watched a really good webinar with Athletes Authority, and they started talking about privates versus commercial. An example, Athletes Authority in Australia, their members actually said, "Can we continue paying, because we want to support you guys and that kind of thing." Commercial gyms will be fine, but I'm probably suspecting a reduction in numbers. And something I wanted to lead on to, maybe just do it now. Personal training is considered a luxury. We're in a tough financial time. I think there's going to be potentially a lot of job losses in the personal training industry. I think there might be a few people that are weeded out, that can't adapt, which may present an opportunity for those that can adapt. Something that I had a little brainwave the other day. We've been training outside for 6 weeks. You return to a gym full of people or whatever, and you might think, I don't know about this. I actually really enjoyed training outside, so maybe that presents an opportunity for some outdoor boot camps, actually, you know, going hard. So I think it's just one of those things where you just got to be adaptive, but it's most definitely going to impact commercial gyms. Something on that, I mean, in terms of level 2, when we supposedly reopen, are they going to limit numbers? I know that my flatmate works at a private gym where in their classes they've got 2.5 meters distance between everyone. They hang on to their own equipment throughout the session. Things are going to be completely different, and we've got to kind of come to grips with that. And yeah, there might only be 10 people allowed in the gym at the moment. You might need to reserve a squat rack, you know what I mean? It's going to be very, very different, fellas, and I think we need to sort of get used to that. And it might be weird for a year, I don't know, but I guess I'm hoping that my loyal clientele do return. I have had a few that are desperate to come back. There's a few that have gone AWOL. I mean, that's the thing. It's the same with the athletes as well. There's going to be a few that are, you know, desperate to return. There's going to be a few that have been enjoying Fortnite. But if you can get the majority of them back, and get the average of the group back, then you're probably sweet. But yeah, man, the commercial gym industry is gonna be a different place when we get back. That's for sure.
All right. And then a final question for all of you. I'm just very aware of time now. We did have those questions that we were going to run through. But I think if people enjoyed this, you know, this is something that we can carry on as things play out. But my final question is actually, this is your time to plug yourselves. So you've all been very active on the gram and various social medias, and you all have your own brand of the content that you've all been putting out. So this is your chance to announce what your Instagram handle is and the types of content you've been putting out over this time, because you all do have like some frequent videos coming out. And why is it that you prioritize the content that you are putting out? So the the videos all have their own flavor. Why is it that that was the specific content that you decided to put out? So we'll go Ricky first, and then we'll just move through.
Yeah, the old Instagram handle, Ricky_Persico_S&C. About a uni. Content I've been doing, most of mine's been through work, but I've just kind of been resharing it on my personal one, but I've just been doing a lot of at-home videos for rugby players. So I've done a few series around neck health, so neck strength, workouts you can do with only one band, a little bit of stuff around other injury prevention stuff around like ACL injuries. I did a one on landing mechanics. And then today we did a partnership with a brand called Silverfern Sports, where I just put out a warm-up specific video for backs and forwards. So just 5 exercises you can do. So I've just been kind of going down the rugby route and stuff you can do at home. And then I've done a couple of posts around training volume, and I'll probably look to be posting some basic guidelines or like stuff to help people get back into training. I think that's probably a good thing. Like, there's probably a lot of people who don't really want to pay for the information, but it could just help a lot of people. So trying to get a little bit of information around, okay, we are going back to, we've got a guy who plays rugby because he loves pissing up with the boys, but what can that kind of person do just to make sure that they don't sit on the sidelines, they are getting out and playing. So trying to help the weekend warrior a little bit as well, I think, over the next few weeks.
Cheers, mate. Dewey?
Yeah, this is always one of the funnier parts, just to always, I guess it's that New Zealander thing. You don't really like to talk yourself up too much, but yeah, I guess mine is primal_performance_coach. I guess, well, a lot of I've been real quiet over the quarantine, purely just because like there has been a lot of voice out there towards the whole fitness aspect. I'm not saying that you get lost in translation, but there's a lot of things being said on both sides of what is more just, or as Troy always refers to as the Gymshark booty bands. I don't know if he's actually sponsored because he keeps on plugging it, but we'll put that up for discussion in probably the next Zoom meeting that we have. But it's kind of like, it's one of those things that you need to just know what information to go with and everything like that. So I guess the more that I put on there is, I like to get the sport-specific training principles, areas, and everything like that. But then one thing that I've got is I want to try and break it down so the normal layperson can understand what it actually all means. Because I know, like, for example, the one thing that's been said throughout this whole conversation is training load, residuals, injury prevention, and everything like that. But to someone that might have gone to uni the same as us, but done in BCom or something instead like that, they won't actually know the kind of jargon terminology that we use. So one thing that I kind of like to do is break down all of those kind of specific points so the normal person can understand. And then, because there's always the everyday athlete that can apply it to their own training and everything like that. And it's just, well, I guess that's just more what I do. Like, you have fun with fun in it. I do a few athlete, spotlights and stuff like that, because at high school you get some freakishly talented kids coming out. And I guess through there, like, it's one thing I've been lazy on, I've mentioned, but I've got a plethora of saved videos that I'm going to start putting up to demonstrate specific training points like force velocity training and everything else like that. Just don't want to ramble on too much about it.
Awesome. Cheers, mate. Yeah, well, the thing is, you want to describe things for the layperson. Academics are no better, man. They get caught up on semantics all the time. Like, what the heck is fatigue? We could be, do a whole damn video on that. But yeah, I understand getting things out to the lay as well as people who are a bit more aware. And you're totally right. We in New Zealand aren't very good at plugging ourselves. So this is your time. Be proud of what you're doing, boys. All right, Luke.
Yeah, I actually just brought up my Instagram just to give it a once over. I'm not that big on it, but my handle, LA Health and Performance, is where you find me. I got I don't have any themes really. I guess post what's on my mind, to be fair. There's a couple of quotes in there that do resonate with me. Controlling the controllable, obviously, stuff like that. But I've tried to give a few free content. So I chucked up a home program sort of just after lockdown. Yeah, it's something that it's interesting that you did say that though, because we are very, I guess, humble in our nature. But we probably need to change that and understand that maybe it's a Kiwi thing, bro. It probably is a Kiwi thing. But yeah, we probably need to ramp it up. And I know that when I return back to Snap, I never talk about what I do outside of Snap Fitness to my members. But now I'm just gonna pump it, just because whatever. It is what it is. This is what I do. And if you're keen to sign on, then sweet. But yeah, it's one of those times where it's going to get a little bit stressy financially, so you're going to have to learn to blow your own horn. It's not a bad thing, and it's something that I struggle with though, but it's not a bad thing. It's just having confidence in your own ability. And we all in this room have solid reputations, so probably about time we do get on with it. But yeah, it's tricky, man. It's tricky there's a lot of pressures, and there's a lot of comparisons, but I guess, Gary Vaynerchuk just says content doesn't have to be perfect. Just chuck something out there, and you'll get better with it. But yeah, something that I do need to improve on, but I guess my gram just represents me as a person, philosophically, stoicism, stuff like that. It's just who I am. But yeah, that's me. Check it out.
Awesome. Cheers, mate. Now, Ronnie.
Yo, so I actually just started making a sort of training Instagram about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago now. I thought, I don't want to clog up my other one with all these training things if people don't really want to see it. So it's trainwith_Ronz, RONZ. It's one of my nicknames. And that's just for people who, want some workout training tips, health advice. Still trying to figure out like the direction that I want to take the page, whether it'll be more down the sports performance side or, just general health. I think those two go together though, because, the thing that underpins sustainable performance is being healthy. But I like to post, we workouts that people can do. Anyone can do them, short blowouts. I'm looking forward to when all the players come back and I can start showing the world what I'm doing with my athletes, because we do some cool stuff over here. But yeah, that's me. Anything to do with training and health, I'm gonna try and put it in there.
Cheers, mate. And moving on, last but not least, Marty.
Kia ora. I'm at Performance Academy _NZ, and my goal and the other coach's goal of Performance Academy is to essentially create the best athlete or individual they can be. So helping them with their journey through growth, using various skills, theories, and methods to help them progress towards their journey. I do a lot more than just what you see on social media. Social media is only a small aspect of it, and I guess if you kind of look at social media holistically or your life, I hate looking at a screen. I hate sitting down doing the social media admin. It's kind of goes against what I like. For a long time I didn't jump on social media because I just purely didn't like when you look around, you see everyone on their phone. So kind of discouraged me to go on it, but it's definitely a way to use social media to get a bit of outreach and just kind of get some platform going. So yeah, Performance Academy _NZ. If you're in Z, if you're in Dunedin, holla.
Man, that was so that actually is going to bring us to the end of this. We didn't get through half the things we were meant to talk about, but it was an awesome catch up. And I think the key things people are going to take away from this, number one, it is time to start speaking up a little bit more. We've got, you've done some really awesome things, each of you, and people still don't know what it is you're doing because you're just not really the types of people to put it out there. Secondly, would be the fact that we are just kind of adapting with the times and doing the best that we can to be able to, be the best that we can be in terms of the value that we can give to people, but also knowing that we need to start taking care of ourselves as well. So this is a really nice time for that reflection. And another thing is people will now see that there is no yes, no, everything is very gray. And that's why I'm glad the discussion went the way it was, where no one came out and said, all right, this is what needs to happen, boys. And then we just do this, because, everything is so context dependent. And most of the answers that we can give, if someone did ask us, is it depends. Then we try to make up there we go. Yep, it depends. So if any time someone asks you a question and you don't feel like answering, you can always say it depends, need a bit more context. Oh yeah, I guess in some instances this could work. But that's just the way that we work, because, everything, there are so many moving parts. But happy thing from all of you saying is that we need to start looking after ourselves as people, engaging in practices that can help us, be better for our communities in the future. So I thank you all for coming on. I'm going to stop the recording and then we can have a little chat after. But thank you so much for your time. It's our first one. If this is a hit, we can always do it again. Cheers, boys.